So you have created a nice testing framework. All the test cases are neatly organized in the test suites and it all looks fine and dandy. When you run it on your local machine, everything looks fine. But when you run it in a pipeline, people start complaining about a long feedback loop. And the tests suddenly start to take like 2 hours sometimes, and you have no idea why. So today we are going to untangle that huge riddle, and we are going to get rid of one of the main bottlenecks I see in junior test automation engineers, which is the login page. Hello everyone, I'm Casper. Welcome to Testeroni, where I help QA engineers become test automation engineers one slice at a time. And so let's dive right into this framework and let's optimize it. So when engineers transition from manual testing into test automation, they usually bring their toolkit and their mindset with them. So if you're a manual tester and you are to test whether a user can correctly delete the profile, what would you do? You would go to the website, go to the login page, put in the credentials, click submit, wait for the dashboard to log in, then you would go into the settings and so on and so forth until you click the delete profile button. And this is problematic when you try to copy it like one-to-one into the test automation realm. Because if your suite has, let's say, 100 test cases, and each one of them needs to go through the login page and actually put in the credentials and wait for it to log in, then you are creating a huge architectural problem because it takes forever to actually run this through the framework. UI interactions are the slowest part of any testing effort, and you are essentially running it 100 times, effectively testing also the login part of the application 100 times needlessly. So no wonder that it will take some time for it to actually go through that route. Waiting for all the DOM elements to actually load on every step of this journey is a complete waste of precious pipeline resources. And yes, you can say, well, but I am going to put that into a, let's say, suite setup so that it will only run once, and then I won't have to do it 100 times. Yes, okay, this will probably save you some time regarding the execution time. But the time itself, the explicit running time of the whole framework, is not the only problem we are dealing with here. Because yes, if you put that in a suite setup for the whole suite, then it will only run once. So it'll also only fail once, for example. So it won't take that much time. But let's imagine for a moment that the front-end developers decided to change something in the CSS, for example, and you were using some kind of CSS locator, or they changed something with the data test ID, you were utilizing that attribute, or they made the XPath obsolete. Or let's imagine that the marketing department decided that they need a promotional pop-up happen somewhere along this journey from the website's homepage up to the settings. So for example, before the login screen or something like that. In each of these scenarios, and there's a lot more, your tests will fail. And all of the tests of the pages that happen after authentication, like the tests for the change avatar, for example, the tests for change username, for change email, for delete user account, all those tests will fail because someone changed the color or the placement of the button on the login page. And the problem is all these functionalities are actually working. They are working properly. You just cannot get to them because of the broken login page. And so suddenly you have 100 false negatives on your hand because someone changed something along the way with the login page, even though login is not the subject of the test in all 100 of those instances. You make your test tightly coupled to a functionality that they are not supposed to be testing. So you can see the pitfall in that, because automated tests should be isolated as much as possible. They should be concerned with what they are actually testing and have a smooth sailing along the way. But in this situation, you are not providing that. You are actually, your report looks as if half of the features of the application suddenly had new bugs in them, even though they don't have any. Or maybe they do, you have no idea, because that's another problem. Maybe they do, maybe there is something wrong with them, but you can't tell even if the result of your test is right. it's just guesswork because you were not able to get past the login page while you were testing the changing of the avatar. So how do we fix this? We use backend to actually inject what we need into our browser instance. So you create an API request that sends your credentials directly to the server, and you receive a cookie or a session token, which is already authenticated, and you inject that into your browser instance so that you can directly go to the page that is actually under test. So no typing, no clicking, no waiting for the homepage to load. Basically, the whole setup then takes 50 milliseconds instead of 5 seconds, and it's bulletproof on top of that. So you then end up only using the UI for the actual user journey that you are testing within this test case. You use the backend for the backend and the frontend for the frontend. You are actually progressing through the part of the user journey that is under test, and the setup is taken care of in a way more efficient manner. Now, let me be absolutely clear. I am not saying that you should never test the login page through the UI. Quite the contrary, you absolutely should. But you need a dedicated, isolated test suite which is focused on exactly that. It is focused on verifying the login, verifying the error messages, verifying the possible values of the inputs of the fields, and so on and so forth. So you have a separate suite that focuses on actually finding out whether this specific functionality is working, and you run it once. You run this suite as an isolated test suite, testing this specific login functionality and everything around it. You don't use it as a mandatory precondition for the other 99 tests that are running every time you run your pipeline. This way, you have the login testing suite that actually focuses on testing and isolating the login page of the application, and you have all the other authenticated pages suite for actually testing the user journey on the authenticated pages while giving you a, let's say, fast track through the actual login UI. And if you want to stop writing slow, flaky tests and actually start to do some real test automation architecture, you should focus on the fundamentals first. So now on the screen, a video should appear of my full roadmap for 2026 for those who wanted to get into test automation, which focuses on all the fundamentals without the fluff so that you know what's important and what to focus on first. So I really recommend you to go and take a look at that, and also at the expansive collection of other things that I mention and discuss on the channel within our catalog. And I'll see you in the next one. But until then, I just want to be sure that you will keep on rocking.